In this episode,
all I can say is it's frightening.
We know statistically that exiting a relationship is the most dangerous time for a woman.
You deserve to be treated with respect.
Welcome to There's No Place Like Home, Paths to Healing. This series is about domestic abuse. Listen with care. Produced on what always has been and always will be Aboriginal land. Made in partnership with Commonwealth Bank, who are supporting people within Australia experiencing financial abuse through CommBank Next Chapter, even if you don't bank with them. For many, escaping from an abusive home is just the beginning, because there's surviving the immediate crisis and then there's recovery, everything that comes next.
I had to keep going back because I didn't have anywhere to go.
I need them to know that they're still valued as a human being.
On behalf of every single person that you've done that for, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Alecia left her partner more times than she can count before she finally escaped for good. She didn't return because she wanted to get back together. She came back because she and her children had nowhere else to go. In this episode, I'm joined by Alecia, a mum from regional New South Wales who left an abusive partner only to face another crisis. Chloe Hope from Carrie's Place, a service helping regional women escape while facing a cost of living and a rental crisis. And Jenny Holmes from the Women and Girls Emergency Centre in Redfern, whose unforgettable story drives her mission to give women dignity and care, as well as a place to sleep.
Today we are talking about housing. Healing and recovery in the long term is made a lot more difficult if you don't have a safe place to stay and the security of knowing where you are going to be sleeping. Thank you so much for joining me for There's No Place Like Home.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Jenny, could you tell me a little bit about what you do and what drives you?
So I'm the program manager for a service called From Now, which work with pregnant women and mums leaving incarceration and that have had contact with the legal system. I also come from a lived experience, so I was facing a lengthy prison term when I was pregnant with my son. So I think the drive there has been for me because seeing what the systems do now was the same when I was going through my lived experience, which was 38 years ago. So it's really sad to think that the systemic
Hasn't changed.
changes still haven't been improved. So I think for me it's really important to be involved and try and support the women that we can and one step at a time to get some systemic change.
Absolutely. Chloe, you work at Carrie's Place in the Hunter Valley. Tell me a little bit about what you do and what drives you.
So Carrie's Place Domestic Violence and Homelessness Service, it's a service out in the Hunter Valley. So I work with about 10 to 15 women in each of my groups. And it's about rebuilding connections and also educating them and empowering them to make their own decisions and understand what they've gone through and how they can grow from that.
Alecia, we've chosen to use a pseudonym which you've picked out to protect your privacy and your safety, but you still wanted to join us today. Can you tell me a little bit about why you have chosen to make that choice to participate in this podcast?
Mainly I just want to give people hope because it's been 2 years since I've been out of my DV situation and it gets better. And I just want everyone to know it gets better and also to find, where to find the help.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. Took me maybe 7 or 8 times of leaving to finally find the right places and the right people. And, I just want them to know it gets better.
I'd like to start with your experience. You were with your partner for more than half a decade. What was your life like throughout that relationship?
Well, hard to say the least. Sad, scary, unpredictable. Just every day was so unpredictable. You surrender to it and you just think there's no way out.
You lived in a property that was not owned by yourself, that was in someone else's name.
Yes.
How did not having your name on the property and not knowing or not being able to find somewhere else to go impact your experience of being able to leave?
It was the reason that I had to keep going back because I didn't have anywhere to go. And, you know, apart from a few nights here, a few nights there, and, you know, because you're isolated from your friends and family, eventually people do go away. Eventually people do stop asking how you are. And so when you turn around and you're ready to leave, you realise those people aren't there anymore. And so, you know, I had to go back.
You said you spent a few nights here or there,
Yeah.
but that you were cut off from your loved ones.
Yeah.
What was that here or there? Where did you stay?
Friends, a couple of friends that I had left on their couches, you know, for a couple of nights, but then for different reasons, you know, had to go somewhere else. Slept in my car, done that a fair few times.
What was it like having to ask that of friends? Because I imagine having to...
Embarrassing, humiliating. It was, I felt like the biggest piece of, because, I don't know, they knew, you know, like they would warn me and wanted me to go, and then I'm sort of going back with the tail between my legs, and it was embarrassing.
Is that something you hear, Chloe?
Yeah, I think we hear a lot about the guilt. It's the I should have known better, and that's what a lot of women experience when they're leaving and going back, which we know is unfortunately very common because of all of those things that you spoke about, kids, homelessness. Those fears can persist beyond, and it makes it easy. It makes it seem like it's easier going back because the devil you know, right?
I know how to be a victim of domestic violence. I know how to play that role. You know, I could write a script on it. I don't know what comes after.
Jenny, is that something that resonates with you as well?
I think so, and I quite often it's always put back on the woman to do something, to take that responsibility. We're the ones that have to leave. We're the ones that have to find somewhere to go, make sure the kids are safe, and we're the one being taken out of what we know.
Our world.
And put into a situation where we have to leave our community and leave, you know, our kids have to change schools, and we should have known better, and why didn't you leave earlier? So I think somehow we need to change this narrative that it's the woman's responsibility to be doing this.
Absolutely.
We're not looking at what the man has done. His life doesn't change. He gets up the next day, goes to work, he knows where his clothes are. Why are we putting it back on the woman continuously? We've got to change this.
Jenny, you work at the Women and Girls Emergency Centre in Redfern. How much of a factor is housing, secure housing, having somewhere to sleep in the lives of the women that you work with?
Housing underpins everything that a woman faces. If a woman has a stable place to call home, somewhere to feel safe, they're able to manage their trauma, they're able to deal with all the things that follow when we leave a situation like that. And quite often women go into refuges, and that's not a long-term solution. And if you've got your kids with you, you know, I know from my own experience, you kind of, are they judging how I mother?
Yes.
Are they reporting what I'm doing? If I don't do the 10 steps, if I don't do all of that transactional things that they ask me to do, are they going to exit me? Are they going to kick me out? Am I going to be back on the street again?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jenny, one of the things that you do when you set up accommodation for women who are leaving incarceration is you put pillows in the room. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you do make those rooms feel more comfortable and more personal?
I want it to be how I'd like to go into it. I want it to have personal touches. I want the quilt to have colour and to have character. I want the cushions on the bed to have meaning, to be personal. I want the little care packs to be something that are important, not just that you need. I don't want it to just be toothpaste, shampoo and a packet of pads. I want it to have a touch that is personal.
That says someone cares about you.
100%, because I want that respect to be shown, that you deserve to be treated with respect and care, not just put in an emergency situation.
Alecia, I can see you are getting emotional. How does it feel hearing that?
I can talk about, the ins and outs and nitty-gritties of my DV experience, but when I hear beautiful things like that, that's what gets to me. And on behalf of every single person that you've done that for, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
What would that have meant to you?
To me, it would have meant I am someone, I am heard, I am cared for. And that in darkness, is I won't swear, is a candle. And it is so thoughtful and beautiful. So thank you.
Chloe, I'd like to talk about a program called Staying Home Leaving Violence. Can you tell me a little bit about what that program is and what it does aim to do?
So Staying Home Leaving Violence is a program for women who have left an abusive relationship or are attempting to leave one. And basically what it does is it helps keep the woman safe in her home or a home of her choosing. So it's a case management program and they'll stay on board for up to 2 years usually. They can be exited sooner or they can stay on for longer. It just depends on the situation. But it is a hard one because you can't stay safe in your own home if you don't have your own home.
Let's say that this woman does have her own home or that it's a shared property. Can you help me understand what that actually looks like once she gets to that point of wanting to escape that relationship?
A lot of work goes into exit planning because we know statistically that exiting a relationship is the most dangerous time for a woman.
And what is exit planning?
So it can look like when do they work? Are they going past the home when they're at work? Can we get you out at a time that is safe? Is it possible to put away money or medication or any other important documents so that if you need to leave quickly, we can do that? Do you have a safe place to go that he doesn't know about? All of those sorts of options that when you are leaving, if you have to leave quickly, we've got a plan. If we can get you out slowly to make sure that you have everything that you need when you go, that also, we have a plan for that too.
So what does that look like when a woman wants to stay in her own home?
Yeah, so the long-term goal is that we will do everything possible to keep you in your home as long as we can through whatever strategies and safety mechanisms we can use. Safety audits is probably one of our biggest ones. So that's assessing the home and making suggestions around how can we increase safety and decrease risk. The other thing is around if police do have to attend that address, how can they get there as quickly as possible? The other thing is around taking perpetrators' names off the lease and what that looks like to make sure that if the perpetrator does come, you have a safe room or a safe spot that you can stay until the police are able to attend. Other things include making sure that the woman has an AVO, or if she doesn't want to go to police, that's okay too. But implementing all the strategies that we can to make sure that she's safe and supported in her own home.
Have you seen it make a difference?
Absolutely. And for women who are able to stay in their own home and stay in a place where their children know and are comfortable with, it can help kickstart that recovery. For some women, the home can be a reminder of everything that they've gone through, and they will stay in that home until they have another home that they can then ultimately move to and rebuild. But it just gives them consistency while they're trying to recover.
Jenny, at the Women and Girls Emergency Centre, or WAGEC, how often is the issue of needing a safe place to stay, wanting housing, how often is that in your work?
Every single night We have up to 200 women and children that are housed through Leaving Violence, and with our From Now program, that also includes women that have been misidentified and incarcerated, which we know is on the rise.
When you say misidentified, could you explain what that means?
So misidentified is that the woman has become known as the perpetrator, and that is often that for the first time, or maybe, she's started to get a bit of courage and fight back.
Yep.
We're finding that women are being charged as the perpetrator, and a lot of the women that we are working with, especially Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, they're being incarcerated and put in jail, and they're not given bail because, one, they don't have a home anymore. So they've got nowhere to go, so they're not being bailed. But what we're looking at now is community doesn't look at women as being incarcerated. They are women. They're the community's dirty little secret. For men, it's almost like a rite of passage. They go to jail, nothing changes for them. But when we're talking about the gendered experience of what prison does to a woman and what happens with homelessness. So 30% of women go into prison homeless, 50% come out homeless. So when we talk about the misidentified woman, this is a new level of creation, I'll say, of what's happening for women. And once you've been incarcerated, it's really hard to get into an SHS service because there's risk. They believe the risks are too high.
Your work doesn't explicitly work with women who've experienced domestic and family violence, but can you explain for people who might not be aware what is the link between the two?
So I can tell you that every single woman we have worked with has experienced domestic and family violence. I think we worked it at 90% of women have faced childhood sexual assault. So it's a really interesting fact that all the links are traced back to family and domestic violence, either with their partner or they've grown up in a household that has experienced that. And when we're talking about First Nations women, like Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women are 22 times more likely to go to prison than non-Indigenous for exactly the same crimes. So none of our women escape this. The link between what our women experience and what they have experienced through their whole life is all tied with domestic and family violence.
What percentage of the women that you work with in prison are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander?
So 75% of the women that come through our service, either in the accommodation or the outreach, are First Nations women. But to see them breaking that intergenerational trauma and working with DCJ to keep their children, I mean, nothing beats that.
You are an Aboriginal woman yourself. Looking at those statistics and the women behind those statistics,
yep.
What does that tell you?
That tells me that the colonisation that has happened in our country and the intergenerational trauma that still persists in our systems is just horrendous. But we're about breaking those bonds, breaking that. We're changing the way we work with women and looking at people in a more relational way and stopping all this transactional, colonised, patriarchal way.
Tell me a little bit about the work you've done and the frankly incredible outcomes that you've found with that work.
So From Now opened its doors 18 months ago as a pilot program. We couldn't get government funding, so we're philanthropically funded by the Judith Neilson Foundation. Our CEO, Nicole Yard, had a vision for this because she was running some groups in Dilwinia Women's Prison and they were getting so many requests for accommodation. What it is, it's a supported accommodation program. You come in for 3 to 6 months. Our criteria is you have to be a mum, whether your kids are in your care, kids are in kinship care, out-of-home care, or you're pregnant. We get a lot of pregnant mums. And it's really sad that our justice system is throwing pregnant women into prison. So they come into our program, it's wraparound case management.
What does wraparound case management mean?
It's working with every part of your life. It's working with making sure that you're adhering to all your bail conditions, parole conditions. It's working with housing. It's working from a therapeutic standpoint as well, making sure that your healing journey starts. We believe that you lead by example. So if we want women to understand about cleaning or dietary or cooking, we get alongside and work with the women. You know, the chores are all shared and we're there for a conversation at any point through the day. We also do a life skills program at the moment. We've got a volunteer that comes in once a week and they're doing cooking classes. We have therapeutic groups, which are either parenting groups, DV groups, self-esteem, looking at who you are, what your journey is. We've had 19 women through the house in the last 18 months. And to date, we have not had one woman we're working with return to prison.
Oh, that's amazing.
Or one child has been taken from DCJ. All the mums have been able to keep their babies. And look, not every woman is suitable for the accommodation.
Absolutely.
So we have a huge outreach part of the program as well. So we go all over New South Wales with court cases, and that's been really interesting.
Chloe, thinking about healing and recovery, I'd like to talk about a program that you do with a childcare group called Tillies. Can you tell me a little bit about what that program is and what it aims to do?
So the majority of our group programs all have Tillies childcare. And how that looks is we have at least one or two childcare workers who are experienced and well qualified or on their way to gaining qualifications through the childcare sector to support our children and our little ones while mum can engage with the therapeutic groups and the other women and engage with that content while also knowing that her child is safe and supported and is being appropriately watched by someone who is trusted and secure as well. And it also helped identify for some of our parents whether those children had additional needs in the disability realm or if behaviours are potentially related to trauma, and to engage with further supports as needed.
You trialled putting those children in a different room to mum during classes. Tell me what happened there and what was the outcome?
All of our programs run in community halls. So the first term we had the women out in the main part of the hall and the children in like a little side room. One of our children screamed at the baby gate for the entire session and cried the whole time for his mum. He was about 4, I think. He wasn't able to engage with the other kids and with the childcare worker because he was so focused on how can I get back to mum. And so after that session, we realised that having them in a separate room does not work. Particularly, he had a developmental delay, but also a huge history of trauma from his older siblings being removed and then also the domestic and family violence that he'd witnessed between mum and dad. So having, in the second session, him up the back where he was able to see mum and able to check in with mum and check in with his little sister where he needed to, seemed to work really well for him because his ability to attach with her was more secure and safe.
Jenny, you are a mum. How have your children impacted your recovery journey and the work that you do?
I think both of them, I have a son and a daughter, have impacted hugely. My journey has not been linear. It's been very complicated, and I lost my son when he was 19. He passed away, so my world was tipped upside down, and I didn't think I had anything left when I lost him. But it took me 3 years, but I had to find meaning and purpose in his death and also for me to continue. So one of the big things was going back to school and getting into this field of work. And my daughter has followed me. She works for Women and Girls Emergency Centre as well. We do very different things, but we are both driven. She's experienced domestic and family violence, so, you know, that traumatic history has been there for her. So to have meaning and purpose from your children, for me, is part of that journey. You cannot do this life without your kids being on that journey. So for me, it's been everything. It is the purpose, it's the reason, and it's what gets me up every day to keep going.
You turned pain into power.
Absolutely.
And that is my favourite thing in the world.
Yeah, and his name was Joshua.
Yeah, it was. I had a funny joke with Sally the other day. So Josh was colourblind, and the big thing was, I hate pink. I've got this thing about pink. And a couple of months before he died, on Mother's Day, he'd bought me a dressing gown. And when I opened it, it was pink. And the big laugh was, why the hell did you buy me a pink dressing gown? And he swore black and blue that it wasn't pink, that it was blue. Yeah. So it sits in my wardrobe, and it's just something funny that I'm able to share that is... Yes, it's sad that he passed away, but he still lives on. He is along this journey. He's with the ancestors now.
Absolutely.
But we still walk the same path.
Absolutely.
He just walks behind me with that protection. So, yeah.
With the pink blue dressing gown.
Yeah.
Alecia, you are now on a 2-year rental.
Yes.
And that is coming up soon, and you'll need to find another place to stay.
Yep.
Can you talk to me about the emotional impact of knowing that in a few months you don't know where you're going to live?
All I can say is it's frightening, because I'm off work for medical reasons at the moment, and so I don't have a job with a career and the money to support myself, and, you know, this is 2 years out. You know, there's still obstacles that were, yesterday's obstacles, which was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. There's still the same obstacles that do pop up.
We have so many clients daily sitting here having these conversations. We could do so much with the housing.
Absolutely.
Like Alecia, for you, I could see, instead of you having to stress about where you're going to live in a couple of months, you could be out there advocating like you're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
How much long-term housing is there out there in Australia at the moment?
Well, I'm not seeing any.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that. I have seen 2 of my clients get long-term housing, but in saying that, they've also been on the public housing
waiting list
for over 10 years.
Correct.
Waiting 10 years for a home.
I was told
over
10 to 15.
years.
10 to 15 years for me to get long-term housing.
And any work or modifications that need to be done on that house to make it a better, safer place takes even longer as well.
Yeah.
Long-term housing is such a desperate thing. I mean, we see it on the news. You watch people line up for housing, and they're working and they've got their life together.
Yes.
But when we're looking at our women who are still at the very beginning of their journey, how do we expect them to traipse around going to, look at different rental properties week in, week out?
Yep.
It's just a question that blows my mind, the expectation that is put on our marginalised women. And
Especially for Alecia and I, because we're both from regional areas. The transport, lack of transport is a huge issue.
Yeah.
How can you get to all of these different open houses in various places if you don't drive and there's no public transport or the closest bus is an hour away? Like, it's just hard to manage all of those expectations.
And then, you might have 10 people looking at one property or 100 people looking at one property.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Line. Every property I went to look at, there was lines down the street.
Yep.
It was daunting too, because you go, well, look at my circumstance. They're not going to choose me out of all these people.
When you think about Alecia thriving, to you, what does that look like? What do you look like? What does she look like?
Someone who builds women up. That's all I want to do. I want their pain to turn into power. And I want us to band together. I want to build, it's my dream to build an army of survivors, and then we just keep paying it forward because we have no idea how strong we are. No idea. You know, and it takes certain events that make you feel like you're the weakest of your life, and then through that, that's how you find the strongest part of you, you know, and that's what I want women to do, is whether you're there, whether you're out, whether you're at the start, no matter what, you are so strong, you are not alone, absolutely not alone, and things get better. They constantly get better. Then sometimes they get a little worse, but they get better, and there's always someone out there that's going to help you, always.
Jenny, Chloe and Alecia, thank you so much for joining There's No Place Like Home, Paths to Healing.
Thank you so much for having us.
Next time on Paths to Healing.
I wasn't financially abused because I was financially illiterate. I was financially abused because I was terrified of the consequences of not handing over every cent.
This podcast is made in partnership with Commonwealth Bank, who are supporting people within Australia experiencing financial abuse through CommBank Next Chapter, even if you don't bank with them. Contact CommBank's Next Chapter team on 1800 222 387, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sydney, Melbourne time, excluding public holidays, or visit commbank.com.au/Next Chapter. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and follow or join the movement at futurewomen.com. This episode was hosted by Sally Spicer. Executive producer is Sally Spicer. Our producers are Odessa Blaine and Marcella Rossiano Barrow, who's also our video producer. Geraldine Bilston is our sensitivity consultant, and our supervising producer is Jamila Rizvi. Audio editing by Dave Collins, artwork by Patty Andrews, videography by Charlie Rogers.